Hello and welcome to episode 19 of the Customer Lifecycle. No, that's not right. Welcome to episode
Close.
19 of the Like, Click and Share podcast. Today we're talking about the Customer
We're off to a
Lifecycle.
good start then, Darren.
Oh my gosh, I've just not had enough coffee and I'm recording this right towards the end of the week. My name's Darren Winter. I'm your host along here with Gemma Walton. How you doing, Gemma?
I'm all right, thanks. That's really made me chuckle, Darren.
Oh my gosh, I was so in my mind thinking, right, I need to talk about customer life cycle. That's what we're talking about today. So I'm hopefully you've clicked on the right podcast because that's what we're talking about. So we're going to kind of keep this fairly focused today. I'm not going to say short because there's a reasonable amount to talk about, but you may have never heard of the customer life cycle before, or if you run a business, even if you just work for yourself, this still applies, and it applies even more so for larger businesses and organizations. And I keep saying about businesses, but this, you could be running a charity, social enterprise. It could be just a group, a volunteering group. This still applies to everybody, regardless. So customer life cycle, in short, it's just the different touch points that a customer might have with your business. So right from the beginning, just slightly before they even know about your business, and then if they enter into your sales process or your sales or marketing process, or whatever kind of your main aim of your organization is, all the way through to the very end. Okay, so we talk about kind of the pre-selling. Let's talk about sales. It's easier. So like kind of the pre-sales stages, and then the very end is the kind of the post-sale. So we're going to talk about some examples of each of these stages. And if you haven't already listened to the podcast, which was the last episode where we talked about the marketing and sales funnel, that might be good to listen to that one first and then come back to this. Both of these podcasts will sit nicely, really, with a business plan. Now, we've not talked about business planning on the podcast yet, so I think that's probably something to talk about a little bit later on. But really, the customer life cycle doesn't sit on its own. It really does sit really as part of a series of documents that you should be sort of keeping updated. And as I said, it's just a series of touch points within your business. Okay, so let's just kick this off. Kind of the very beginning is, if you listen to the podcast from the sales and marketing funnel, you had this kind of first stage being the awareness. And you'll see, if you Google customer life cycle, you'll see that in some diagrams they kind of kick off with awareness, but actually it should be before that. It should be the pre stage. And we're going to talk about sales because it makes it easier to put some context around this. But it could still apply if your organization is about volunteering. It's about kind of the steps before they even hear about your organization. So sales, it's a loose term, but I'm talking about, say today, sales in context, but use that to fit in your own organization, whatever it is that you do. But pre-sales, so like say, what's going on before anybody gets to you? Okay, so how will people get to you? Where are you based? What channels are you on? What tone of voice are you talking in? How do people, let's say, find you? And it might just not just be digital. It could be physical. It could be, you could have maybe an agent on behalf of your business that might apply if you've got sort of different territories, or you've got somebody doing some of the work for you. So he's trying to think of kind of those kind of pre-sales stages about how that customer will actually kind of even get to you on that first bit. And it's really important because this is all about putting yourself in the customer's shoes. If you struggle to do that, then you're kind of missing a trick here, because if you can't understand from a customer viewpoint of how a customer journey will look like in your business, then you can't possibly understand some of the frustrations they might see. And once you do understand that, because there's no business really that ever gets it right 100%, and if they do, it's usually for a short term or for a short time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's always something going to go on. The internet's going to go wrong, or your ordering system goes down, or the driver doesn't deliver your parcels on time. There's always going to be a problem somewhere. So, but it's kind of trying to understand what those are, and then trying to minimize those interrupts in the customer journey. So we try to make it, the goal is trying to make it really easy for somebody to find you, do what you need them to do, and then exit, and then hopefully kind of come back and rejoin that whole cycle again. That's really what we're aiming at here. So that pre-stage is probably just as important as the post-stage. And the post-stage, once the customer's got what they need, almost you need to kind of think about linking the post to the pre. So like when you kind of like hand off a project to somebody, or hand off delivery of an item or the service, and if you need that customer to come back, or there is an opportunity for that customer to come back into your sales funnel or into your customer lifecycle again to maybe buy another product, upgrade, buy ancillary products, supporting products and services, how are you going to do that? Is it just through email marketing, or are you just going to rely on them coming back to you again through goodwill? It's like, which if that's the case, then it's quite weak. So that's an area perhaps that you might need to strengthen and talk about, and that could then add value to your business to help get that person to come back through your business again. And obviously, this is all about the customer then buying services, helping your business grow through financially. But if you've got other goals in your organization, it's going to be help supporting those as well. So I've talked about the importance of pre-stage and weirdly the post-stage, even though we've not done everything in between yet, but also just the importance of linking the post to the pre and the pre to the post. Okay, so hopefully that message got there. Once a person has come to you, and then we're starting to understand, they're starting to understand a bit more about your business, and what you do. So they might start to talk to you. They might start looking at your website, might download a brochure. So this is kind of this awareness and maybe researching stage. So they could be researching your business before they speak to you, but they could also be researching other competitors, and then comparing your business to other businesses. And sometimes with the customer lifecycle, you'll see there'll be some links in the podcast here to bring this out and make it more visible. But you'll see kind of this natural flow, kind of go from one stage to the next. But actually, it's not like that, because we don't shop that way. We don't interact and do things sometimes in logical order. So we might jump into one stage and then jump forward a couple of stages and then come back a stage if we've got queries about the product or the service. So for instance, if you're trying to get if you've got an idea to launch a business and you're thinking, well, I need to get some prices because I need to see if this is going to be viable or not before I put any more effort into doing this, then you might go and speak to somebody and say, right, can you give me a price for XYZ? Then they may come back to you and ask for more information. So you'll be constantly going back between these stages. Once they give you the quote and you're thinking, well, that's too much. So you might then have to go back to the research stage before you even, you might have been in the comparison stage, and you might have to go back to the research stage. So there's a lot of to-in and fro-in. So this is fairly fluid. That's the really important thing to understand. Not everybody's always advancing. People sometimes get stuck. And this is another advantage of understanding the customer life cycle, because if you can map this to your sales funnel, then you can see where people are starting to get stuck, because in your sales funnel, you might only have like 4 or 5 stages, just to keep it simple. So it could be, I've sent them a quote. And then your next stage in the sales funnel could be, onboarding, because if they've got the quote and they've bought, then it's about then to deliver the product and service to them. But actually there's listen to that last example, we know there's a lot more steps to happen before that person can be, we onboard them for service, or we take the money and give them their product. And that's where the customer lifecycle fits in, because then you can see actually, well, what's happening between these stages here, and why are these people not moving forward? What else can we do to better serve them? Is it something we're doing wrong? Is it something we could be doing better? Maybe we're not making things clear enough. And it's about then actually your business and organization having to do a little bit of research, talking to your salespeople to understand what the responses in that are. So this is where it starts to get interesting. Once the person has, understand your business, what products you offer, they've taken out the research, done some, they've looked at other competitors, or they've made an informed decision that you're the person, then they choose you. Okay. And then that then leads into a kind of like a purchase cycle. So here it's about then thinking in terms of like business processes. How do you sell? So is it about that you send them like an electronic document for them to sign, or is there something you have to send in the post? How easy can you make it for that person then to get that contract signed or get the money from them? How do you get the money from them? Is the invoice sent separately? So all those stages need to be mapped, because very often you'll find like, well, we'll send you an email for your invoice, we'll send you an email for your contract, we'll send you an email for your invoice, for your agreement or your proposal. So you could end up with 3 or 4 different processes, even though they're part of one process. And I know that because that's what I do in my own business, but I try to join it all together and just do one email and say, this is this, this is this, this is this, and here's your checklist. Just complete this, complete that, and complete this. So I try to, because I don't have the luxury of sometimes doing everything all in one system, but if you understand that could be a problem for your organization, then it's about, well, how can we simplify that and make that easy for our customers? Not necessarily just to get the deal, but it's actually about making better service for them. Because if they get a nice, easy service, they'll tell other people, like, oh, they made it so easy. Whereas, like, I had to speak to so-and-so, they had a process for this, had a process for that. And it just becomes really, really time consuming. It's like, well, why can't you just do this all together? So it's about you put yourself in your customer's shoes. Then it's about delivering customer experience. So what type of experience do they get? So, and this is part of kind of the purchase, what I've just been talking about, but also it's about the experience of the product or the service. And we don't have really enough time to go through talking about the kind of product experience and service today. But I think if you look at it in your own business, once you receive your product, let's talk about physical product, the unboxing of the product, are all the instructions there? How easy is it to start to use that product? If there's training involved to use that product, how easy do we make it for them to do that? Is there particularly attractive branding on the product? Where do we get feedback from the customer? We'll talk about retention loyalty in a minute. If they need help, how do they get hold of somebody? How long do they have to wait? Can they do it by chatbot? So you can see straight away, there's lots of other questions that potentially you could challenge your own business with. And if it's a service, it's like once that person has signed the contract, they usually want to get going with whatever they want straight away. So how easy is it to get to help them make their first appointment? Do they have a person like their account manager hand holding all the way through every single step of the service process? Or is it that the account manager has the first call and then introduces them to somebody else, the product, the subject matter expert who's going to be helping them, and then it's their job to do that? Every business is different, but it's really important you understand that from the customer's perspective, what they see. So you can map this all out. There's a really good app called Lucid Charts. I'll put this in the link, and you can map this all out in a series of flow charts or diagrams to really understand it. And once you start doing that, you can really understand from a customer viewpoint actually all these different steps here, and you'll probably seems like that's a lot. But then you can also now see perhaps or appreciate that if you're the decision maker, you're a manager or CEO of a business, and you're so frustrated by the sales and marketing team, hopefully that will kind of help, unveil some of the challenges and problems that those, your teams are kind of facing on a daily basis. And it's about talking about those business processes and their sales and marketing processes that can really help them get the goals that they need, that you want them to get to, which will help you manage your business overall. Retention and loyalty is kind of one of the final stages before we've got this kind of post-sale stages. So retention and loyalty is about how do you look after that customer, and what do we offer customers. Sometimes it's not just about discounts, it's about giving extra support in terms of customer service. If the product, we're expecting the product to be lasting quite some years, or they've paid a significant amount of money, how do we keep in contact with that customer to make it easy for them to access additional support services? How can they maybe extend the life of the product? And what else can they do with the product? Are you going to offer them like different upgrades? Is there additional software they can download to prolong the life of the product? Anything that you can do there to provide more value and show them how they can maximize their time and investment on the product. Those types of products and services tend to do quite well, because people feel like, well, I've had to spend quite a bit of money, or I've not spent much money, but look what I could do with it. I could do all of this. And that actually then leads to sales, because those people then will then start telling other people about it. And the cycle continues again. So that, in essence, is a quick whiz around kind of customer life cycle. What do you reckon, Jem? Is there anything you would like to add to that? Anything kind of like you missed, or any steps that you've kind of, or tips that you'd like to add?
I don't know. I just think obviously that's quite a lot of information for people about that. I think from my side of things, I think if you're a small business owner, I think it's about trying to do things simply and keeping it simple. And I think there's a lot of tools out there that can help you do that, those different processes and things that you've mentioned there. And I think, to be honest, you've got around you as a small business person, the best people to test out things for your customer journey, your sales cycle and everything are your friends and family. Do you know what I mean? If you can't say it to your friends and family, or, well, this is what I do, can you have a look? Do you understand when I'm saying this is what I do? Do you understand what it is? Or this is what my business does. Do you get it, sort of thing? And they say no, then your message is wrong. So if it's wrong at the start, then the rest of the process is going to be, and I think it's really useful to use those people to help you when you're trying to put together your processes. And your processes and the journey doesn't necessarily have to be that complicated or difficult when you're mapping it out. And I think there are tools like Wix and Squarespace that have different things built in, where you can set up triggers for people to get emails, because it's about your different touch points along the way, isn't it? And it's like, when you look at, I would say 99.9% of the time, you're not going to get somebody that's going to buy your product straight away, unless it's a product that, I don't know, your best mate or your mum or something is used. They've let you try it out, and you know that you want to use, like face cream or something, you know that you want to use it. So you go to that website and you buy it. That's not something that happens very often, but you need to have in that cycle various touch points. I saw something not that long ago that said, I don't know, like, I'd have to find the article, but for argument's sake, that you need to see either an ad or a post or something on social media for that particular brand 10 or 12 times before you'll make the visit to the website, before you'll have a look. You might go back another couple of times before you make that purchase. So it's sometimes, I think, when you're trying to put together a process and mapping things out, sometimes when you say that to people people think, oh God, I cannot do that because that sounds really complicated. And I know when I was first looking at things like marketing and automation or setting up triggered emails at certain points for customers along the journey as part of the sales cycle, I was thinking, well, could go this way, could go that way, and thinking quite complicated. And it's not necessarily that, it's about like what we were saying in the last marketing podcast, the funnel. So it's the awareness, the desire, the want, it's the solving the problem for somebody to be able to then get to the end for the purchase, and I think everything's different for every type of industry. If it's a IT solution for a business, the sales cycle could be, and the customer journey through could be 9 or 12 months. If it's just somebody looking to buy a computer to use every day in their business, the sales cycle, if the computer is dead at this point in time, you could make the decision and buy it that day, just asking a couple of people, couldn't you? Whereas you might just take a week or so of doing a little bit of research and then making the decision. But I think you have to yourself know your customer, and I think you have to look at the data behind the scenes, don't you, to try and be able to map things out. So it is about connecting everything. You're looking at your business plan, you're looking at how many units you want to sell over the year, or what your revenue is for selling a training program, or so many customers. You're looking at that, what your business plan is. Then you're looking at how many things you want to sell over what period of time, using what channels for promotion, how you're going to structure everything. But I think you've got to try and break it down quite simply, to make sure. And I think as well, once you've got that planned out, I think you're just constantly looking at it, aren't you, to like rinse and repeat, for want of a better word, because you want to know, all right, well, I've got these people and they get to here, but then the shopping cart's abandoned. So why is that? Is the cart, when you get to the cart, do you have to add too much information, or are you not allowed to then sign in using like your Google credentials or your Facebook credentials? You can't set up, there's lots of different factors to consider, aren't there?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you mentioned it in there as well, that in terms of your marketing, you might have your content marketing plan aligned as you strategically to help people through those difficult challenges. Mm-hmm. So it could be that, once somebody signed up to the service and they're not using it, then it's like, well, how are you going to engage that person to use your service? So you might need to send like an email drip campaign, showing them how to use it. And you might think, well, why would I do that? Because I've just got the money from them. But the idea is that if you don't help them do it at the first opportunity, they'll cancel.
Yeah.
And the cost that you've just burdened on your business to acquire that customer, you would have just lost that person. So you have to try to keep them engaged all of the time, and listening to them.
And if they're not engaged, you want to know why. So it's that reaching out, isn't it? It's that personal touch. And I think one thing, I don't know if we touched on it a few podcasts ago, but one thing that became apparent during like COVID was that people want instant responses. So they want to be able to live chat with you. They want to be able to message you on Facebook. They want to get a response instantly. And I think that's going to continue because that precedent now is already being set, So if you're not able to communicate with a customer in that way, then I think you'll notice that you might have a drop off. You might get the visit to your website, but if somebody's got a question and there's no way for them to get in touch, or you can fill in the online form or send an email, but then you get the message back that says, we aim to respond back to you within 7 days. And you think, all right, well, I'm trying to get this either now or I want to buy it this week, then that's not going to be right for you. And I think you also need to make sure that you know which channels your customers are on to be able to respond back to them, depending on what kind of product or service you are. You might know that your clients, the majority of them are on Facebook. Well, if that's the case, you don't want to be spending all the time on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and you've got to think, it's smarter, not harder, isn't it? You've got to think about what you're doing and focus your time on those channels. So I think the whole data thing and knowing your target audience, knowing where they hang out. I mean, I think you'd be very unlucky to find that you had an equal spread of customers on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Do you know what I mean? I think that would be, I just don't think that would happen, but I think you'd be able to look and see, right, well, I know 70% are on Facebook, so 20% are on Instagram, and the other 10% is made up with Twitter and LinkedIn. Well, you're only going to mainly focus on Facebook, but you will do a little bit on Instagram. I think it's difficult when you talk about it in the way that we're talking about it now, if you don't really know. But I think the important thing to remember is it isn't complicated. It just sounds like it is. But there are so many systems now that can help you. Like I say, a lot of websites now have built-in ordering tools. You can sell through there. You can link them to Facebook to sell on Facebook, and Google My Business. You can have your products linking back to your website and everything. So you can do things quite simply. You can send your emails now through Squarespace and Wix, and a lot of things can all be done in the one place and can be automated. So yes, it might take you a little bit of time to set up, but once it's there, you might just have to go in and make some tweaks here and there, or if you've got a new product. But it's not as, I think people sometimes think it's quite daunting, because I've got to do all these different channels. I've got to create all this different content. I've got to have this business plan that lasts for 5 years and this content plan that lasts for a whole year and all of this. And you can break it down very, 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 very simply. I think now, because that's what people want. People don't want to be pushed through a load of different stages before they can even get to the shopping cart, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And like you say, it does sound complex, but just start from the beginning. Just mapping out the simple stages first, and then going into a little bit more detail as and when you kind of have in time. But it's better to have something than not at all.
Not at all.
Start from that. And I think it's some really great advice there from Gemma. So hopefully, I think there's something in this podcast for everybody, regardless of how seasoned a marketer or you think your business is doing. Then you can't really rest on your laurels, as it were. You've really always got to be out there trying to deliver a better service. And it's hard. It is really, I think this is the toughest side of everything, is really making sure that you're looking after customers, doing your best. And we can all do more. There's always more we can do. But hopefully you found this podcast insightful, gives you some ideas to think about what you can do, some practical suggestions, and some different insights in terms of maybe some parts of your own customer life cycle that you might want to examine in more detail. And as always, if you've got any questions, our contact details are in the show notes below. It would be great to hear from you. And if there's any aspects of marketing or any people that if you'd like to appear yourself on the podcast, it would be great to hear from you. Tell us what you can offer our listeners. Until next time, it won't be too long, hopefully, and we'll come back to you with another exciting topic about marketing. But have a great day ahead, and thanks for listening.